Hello, I'm Odin, and today I'm going to make a new Marvel prop that seemed like would be an easy build, but actually kind of took an eternity to get to the screen. I'm going to make Thena's spear for the new Marvel movie, The Eternals. So I'm not just joking there in the intro about how long it felt like it took to get this done. When I decided on exactly which weapon I was going to make, which prop I was going to make from the Eternals, I was in a movie theater seeing a new movie and I saw the trailer on screen. And it occurs to me, oh, I can do that. I'll make it out of plastic. I'll have it laser cut so we can just get the gold relief on it and have it, and it'll be fun. Yeah, seemed like a great idea. The first thing I did was started to scour all the trailers that I could find that had images of Thena with her spear so I could figure out exactly what the shape was. What I was trying to do was bring in the images to an art program where I could trace the outline and then use that for getting the laser cut. Simple, right? While I was doing this, Joe saw me fighting with the program and he says, I'd be happy to help you with that. And I was, yeah, okay, sure, no problem. Of course, it took a couple of days for him to get started, but when he did get started, he got finished in one day. So a little bit of time goes by from idea to now I've got a file that I can actually use. So this file we clean up and try to get set up to work with a friend's Glowforge laser cutter. So my friend Shawn over on the YouTube channel tried to finish something, has the Glowforge cutter, and was totally happy and willing to try and get these parts cut out, especially since the idea was to do it two sides, right? I'm going to be cutting out clear acrylic. So with the artwork, we had side one, which you would lay in the machine and etch out all the designs that go on the first side you're cutting. And then you would want to flip the plastic over, hopefully with the same registration. I'm assuming it would work like a scanner where you've got a corner and you stick it in the corner and you know where it's going to be. Apparently it doesn't work that way. So you'd flip the plastic over and then etch it again on the other side that's clean and then come back and just cut it out. So the artwork had to be made in such a way that on the flip side, it could float a little, right? Like it had a little more than it needed or a little less, whichever way we did it. So if the act of flipping the plastic over wasn't perfect, it wasn't going to hurt it. Okay, still pretty easy to do, right? Poor Shawn didn't have an easy way to flip the plastic over. This guy, thank you, Shawn, so much. You did a fantastic job with getting this cut out. You did a fantastic job with making this work the way I wanted it to work. The goofiest thing, I had looked up the specs for Glowforge to see what the largest sheet of plastic I could put in it was, right? What's the biggest, what's the thickest sheet it can cut, and what's the largest size, like the size of paper I can put into it. So it's 12 inches by 20 inches is what it says it can cut, and it can do up to 1/4 inch of acrylic. Side note, I actually wanted to use polycarbonate. I prefer polycarbonate to acrylic. The difference being polycarbonate is the plastic that safety glasses are made out of. When you get something cut or made out of polycarbonate, you're not as worried about the corners. You're not worried about it doing anything if you drop it. Acrylic will survive a drop on the table like this, but polycarbonate I can actually throw on the floor and it'll be okay. Acrylic, the corners would break off. You can't laser cut polycarbonate. It just starts to melt and smoke up and it doesn't really ruin the machine, but basically you don't get a good cut. You just kind of get a big melted mess. So, okay, I can't use polycarbonate. Gonna be using acrylic, fine. I get my pieces to Shawn. There's a bit of a trade-off because while we live close enough that we can meet up somewhere and trade equipment, we're not so close that it's just a simple, oh, I'm gonna run over and pick this stuff up. It's a wee bit of a drive. So I get the equipment to him. He gets it cut. Of course, life is a thing, so it takes a couple of days to get it cut. He calls me up. Okay, I've got the spearhead. Let's speed up. I'll get it back to you tomorrow morning. Great. Let me go get the first one. Now he actually cut 2 the first time. Again, thank you so much, Shawn. You put a lot of effort into trying to finish this something. So I get the first one back, and right off the bat, it's too small. When we did the artwork, we knew the size of the plastic that we could use, which was going to be, you know, this is as large of a piece of plastic you can put in the machine. So the artwork was made to go from the edge to the edge and be as big as it can be. So somehow the translation of the cutting file reduced the size to 3/4 of the size. So I've got a child size spear as well now, but this isn't what I wanted. But at the same time, it is what I wanted. What was really, really exciting about it is the fact that I did get all the etchings on it that I wanted, and Shawn was able to get it on both sides, even though it didn't perfectly work on one of them. That's fine. There's a learning curve on all this stuff. That's why I gave him extra material. But it worked, and it would work fine for what I wanted. And even the little extra pieces that I wanted to put on here, this all looked great, except that it was 3/4 size. So great. I get him some new plastic, and Shawn goes to cut some more, which is all good. We all know machines are finicky. We all know machines are, well, maybe we don't all know, but in case you're not aware of this, but 3D printers, laser cutters, all these fun desktop machines that you want to work, all the things that like, oh, this will be great, I get this toy and I'll be able to do this thing, they are all so finicky and delicate and temperamental. And the laser cutter is not immune to this, is not an exception. You started cutting another one, and something went wrong. I kind of understand what went wrong, but I don't really own the machine, and it's not really my thing, so I don't really want to say, because I'll probably say it wrong, and I don't want to make it sound like Shawn did something really bad, because I don't think he did. But anyway, a new part needed to be ordered. Easy enough, right? I would think. You went onto the site, Glowforge said, yep, we got them, no problem, so it's perfect. I want one of those, I want 2-day shipping, and the website says, sure, no problem. And he lets me know, and I look and go, okay, well, I can still get this done before the movie comes out. I'll just have to do a different video this week, not a problem. So you can see that this is now just a couple of weeks ago. For some reason, the 2-day shipping wasn't just 2 days late or 4 days late. It was almost 2 weeks late. It was incredible, and it showed up like well after dark on a Sunday of all days. It was like, what? So we got another one. This almost worked, right? This is still going to work, and you can see that there's a bit of a size difference here between, you know, there's definitely like a child size and an adult size prop here, which this thing is still cool. They're both still kind of cool. So these aren't, I don't know. I'm going to keep those, but they're off to the side for right now. I'm not sure why, but the laser cutter, while cutting, decided it was done at a point and never finished cutting out the spear completely. It's almost cut out, right? It's almost there, but not quite. So now I get to sit here and finish cutting this out with probably an X-Acto knife, I hope, because this is the only one I've got. And if for any reason I happen to snap the tip off, I get to glue it back on, because I'm not going to be getting another one of these. Now, as an alternative idea, I could, I might need to actually, this is not, you know, I'm thinking I'm going to take this to the bandsaw and I'm going to cut some of the extra weight off just to reduce some of the weight on this. So let's go cut this on the bandsaw. Come here. Once I started cutting on the bandsaw, I decided I could just cut out what needed cutting and skip the razor knife. I tried to cut over the lines just a little, basically cut outside of the lines, and then I can go back and sand down to what was left. And this worked really well. It took all of about 10 minutes, and I had the parts without any breakage. I've got my shape. I'm gonna need to clean up the edges a little bit. What I cut on the bandsaw is considerably rougher than what I got here, but that's not a big deal. I'm gonna be able to take a rotary tool and I'm gonna be able to sand down the edges with a sanding drum or a grinding stone, whichever one seems to work when I'm actually doing it, and it'll look great. I just used a grinding stone. I made pretty short work of cleaning the edges. And by keeping the tool on a lower speed, the plastic didn't melt into goo and clog the bit or make ugly blobs that would stick to the exact place I was trying to clean up. I also did a little hand sanding as well, making the edges pretty. When working with plastic, keep the workspace as clean as you can. All the shavings and that plastic sawdust will scratch the surface of the plastic you're working with. I find using a vacuum is easier than fixing small scratches on my plastic project. Another reason to clean is when you start to remove the protective wrap for the plastic, well, that can create static cling. And all those little tiny bits of stuff that you don't want are suddenly attracted to your project. What's really kind of cool is I peeled the protective paper off. I can see how deep the cuts are on the other side. That's really kind of cool. Now, there is an inherent danger in the plastic with having all of these fairly deep engraving cuts. They're all a weak point. That's why the plastic's thinner, and if it's going to break and fail, it'll probably be along one of these cuts. All right, peeling off the protective backing is going to take a little while. It's not too bad. This will be done in less than an hour, but I don't want to have all the cameras recording for the next hour, so I'm going to turn them all off, and once I'm done, I'll turn them all right back on, and I'll see you in just a quick edit. All right. This is pretty cool just the way it is. I'm making sure I don't have any more tiny little pieces of paper. And it looks like I've got them all. One of the fun things to look at that I can see, it'd be really hard for the camera to see, is in the places where the same line comes up and stops, like here. The laser would do a line and stop, and would do a line and stop, and it would come up and cut in another line and then stop. Well, here at the end, they got so close, it just kept cutting deeper and deeper and deeper, which is fine. That's fine, but it's not something I had considered would happen. I'm so used to tools that only cut as deep as you set them instead of a beam that's going to cut wherever it's being shot. All right. I also peeled the paper from the two small round pieces. All right. And I've got the two logos that go on the side. I'm kind of ready to paint it. So what I want to do next, this is actually really cool. So what I want to do next is put the gold into all the etched lines. And the way that I'm going to be doing that, and I've tried it and it works, is actually just use rub and buff. Mineral spirits will clean rub and buff off the surface, and mineral spirits doesn't hurt the acrylic plastic. Acetone will eat the acrylic plastic, but the mineral spirits doesn't. So all I gotta do now is smear this thing down with rub and buff. It's simple, right? By the way, this is one of the smaller ones of the insignias, right? So that's the scale difference as well. So yeah, it's about 3/4 size, right? So yeah, but neat. It's actually kind of cool having, I might do the other ones of these. This is neat. I was not too sure exactly how much gold I needed to use, so I started out sparingly. But before too long, I was putting the rub and buff right on the plastic and smearing the gold around as much as possible. I was never worried about getting gold everywhere. Mineral spirits cleaned up the rub and buff and took it right off the plastic. And the ever so slight oily residue that was left over, well, that wiped off the plastic without any issues. I am going to use my really old can of Weld-On 4 to glue the circles onto the sides of the spearhead. Now, Weld-On 4 should be water clear, if I remember right. It's been a long time. I've had this can almost about 20 years. Flooding the area with solvent glue lets me set the piece on the plastic and then minimizes the visible glue between the two transparent plastics. And after I let it set for a few minutes, I can glue on the other side. While this sets up and completely dries, which won't take that long, the Weld-On 4 as a solvent dries pretty quickly, going to set it aside and get to start working on the pole. I measure the pole and make a mark just over 5 feet from the end. Since the leftover piece is going to be too long to fit inside the bandsaw, I'm going to cut this one with a jigsaw and then square the edges with my disc sander. Now I can't laser cut the tube because it's a tube, but also it's polycarbonate. So my plan was to use a gold paint pen, but the paint went on so thin it didn't really look good. So my plan changed to cut the decorative lines I want out of blue tape and then spray paint bright and shiny gold directly onto the tube.
I'm going to finish this up outside.
After the paint dries, I get to peel even more protective tape. But before I do, I use the bandsaw to cut a slot so I can glue the spearhead in place. Now I realize these lines are considerably larger than the laser cut lines of the spearhead, but I don't really mind. I mean, I doubt I could have hand cut that many tiny little thin lines onto the tube and not gone crazy. The spearhead fits the slot, and it's a tight fit, which is good, because this wasn't an easy cut. If I had cut it too big, then I would have had to have gone back and used some transparent plastic screws to hold the spearhead to the polycarbonate tube. But by cutting it as close as I did, I can use Weld on 4 to glue the two parts together, completing the build of Thena's weapon. All the materials used in this project I picked up locally. I put a list in the description. Okay, this is really cool. This kind of worked. Okay, I know one of the comments would be, but you etched everything. Why didn't you put an LED light on there and make the whole thing light up? Well, because the shape that it is, the whole thing wouldn't light up. Just kind of the center would mostly light up. It wouldn't bleed over to everything else. There's other types of plastic I could have used that might have done that, but this one wouldn't. And also I wanted it to be gold. And as soon as I put gold in there, it's probably not gonna light up anymore. And there really isn't any place to hide electronics in this prop. So that's why I didn't make it light up. But I am very happy with how gold it is. This is working out for me. This looks really cool. It looks really good. Going back to the lighting up, it looks really good because from my point of view, it's backlit. Right? All the lights for my video are on that side of the table. And so it's backlit to me and I can see everything very plainly, very cleanly. And this is very, very cool. So I'm very happy with this. Now, it does occur to me that doing all this, getting all this done, thank you, Shawn, thank you, Joe, getting all this done was really very cool and it was a fun thing to do, right? It was a fun idea of how to use a laser cutter to make an acrylic project that I kind of wanted to do to make this ethereal gold lace materialized weapon. I bet you could probably do it without the laser cutter. This process also worked and is almost easier to see with the cameras. So if you were to just hand cut this from polycarbonate on a bandsaw, which you could do, and then cut your design in kind of like I did on the shaft and just spray paint it, I bet that would work out just fine. But my mental thought on how I wanted to do it was, ooh, I could do it laser, and I totally got caught up with going down the path, the happy, merry path of getting it laser cut when there's alternatives. Because there's always going to be alternatives. But just one last time, I want to do a huge thank you to Shawn Cash and his YouTube channel, Try to Finish Something, because I do feel that Shawn went above and beyond through quite a bit of problems just because, I said I'd do it, I'm gonna do it. This sounds like fun, I'm happy to help. That makes Shawn sound Shawn's a really nice guy, so thank you very much. If you haven't checked out his channel, please do. He does a ton of Star Wars builds. He's got 2 different outfits that have been 501st approved, so that at least that I know of. He might have more at this point. Definitely, please go check him out. And you know, I know there's going to be lots of different ways that you can make a self-manifesting, ethereal, gold lace weapon. But this is how Odin makes. So the piece I threw on the floor was this guy right here. This is the polycarbonate. I can't guarantee that it landed point down when it landed on the concrete, but all the corners are still there. If it was acrylic, there was a good chance that if it hit the concrete that they would have chipped, right? We would have lost and gotten a fracture at one of the corners, but because it's polycarbonate, it's just fine. And this is why I like polycarbonate. I wish I could laser cut it. I want to thank Scott Marshall, Shawn Carg, Patrick Hannon, and all of my Patreon supporters. Patreon members at the $5 and above level get access to my private Discord, which includes weekly games with me, proper-related chat, and early access to live streams. My Patreon support is the #1 thing that makes this show possible. If you like the video, don't forget to subscribe. Have an idea for something for me to make? Please leave a comment below. And if you make any of these projects, you can send me a picture.